Welcome to the Politics and Media Show with me, John Rees. A public inquiry is set to look into the case of a Muslim primary school in East London which has accused the local council of Islamophobia. The school claims that Newham Council has raised questions over how inclusive the Alif Academy in Forest Gate is, but Newham Council denies the claims and says that it has nothing against the school, it's simply concerned about the safety of its buildings. Before we discuss this, let's take a quick look at the press conference held last week by the school to raise awareness about the story.
We continued, and we felt so insulted by a council that can openly say they don't want an Islamic school, openly say they don't want an Islamic school in this borough, and I felt disgusted. I thought, are Muslims doormats? Do they just wipe their feet on us? So we said, no, we will continue. We will give them a planning application, and we will still intend to open in September. Because we were not in breach of any laws. We were trying to be compliant with every single law that we should be compliant with. And as we continued, and as the council discovered that we were going to give them a planning application, they then wrote to the Department for Education, then they wrote to Ofsted, and they accused us of being extremists, terror suspects. They accused us of being in violation of enforcement. There was no enforcement. This is how much guts they had, that they could openly accuse us of being linked to extremist organizations. Why? Because they thought if the DFE would be scared to register this school. But alhamdulillah, Allah works in ways that we don't understand. The DFE, they wrote to me. They said, can you please explain yourselves? Your council is telling you, you are this and that and this and that. And I wrote back to them and said, if you really believe what they say, ask them to produce their evidence. Ask them to produce their evidence. 1 week later, the letter came back from the DFE, says, congratulations, you've been registered at school. Alhamdulillah. And we thought that...
With me in the studio to discuss this is Haseeb Hikmat, the head teacher of Alif Academy, who of course we saw in that video. Welcome. And we have Daud Juneja, who's the founder and chairman of the Noor school in Ilford, which faced similar problems to the Alif Academy, leading to its eventual relocation to Ilford. Welcome. We did of course invite Newham Council to appear on the show, but the Mayor of Newham and a number of councillors declined to come on. So let me just ask you, what do you think's behind this? Why have Newham Council acted in this way, in your view?
Well, I think it's now quite clear and evident in all the correspondence that we've had with Newham Council since early 2011, where they've indicated that they don't want an Islamic school. And they are abusing the planning process to achieve their aims, to prevent us from, initially from opening and now from continuing to operate. So we feel that the agenda that Newham has is one of discrimination and xenophobia.
Mm. And this is something that's familiar to you as well.
Yeah, because it's literally, we're talking about 13 years after when we were trying to open the school, and this is going back in 1999. We got together and we decided that we will, the community there, that we will try and open a school. So it was basically a Newham community project. We were looking for a suitable building, and we found one that was owned by the council, which was available. So we decided to ask the council if they will give that to us, that the community is asking. So there's a community demand on here. We actually had a big petition on that, and the council refused. Mr. Robin Wells was still the top man there. He still is now. So 13 years on, it's almost like a similar incident. No, there's a completely different variance to it, but it's still the same thing, that we couldn't get what we wanted, and we ended up getting a building in Redbridge, and we're operating school, and it is our 10th anniversary since we opened there. So
And so you've had significantly different treatment in Ilford than you had when you tried to found the school, is it?
Yes, it was, because what it is, the community say that here there is a council building. Here we are the community, that we want a school. There is, in education they have a lot of debates on parental choice, demand, what have you. And here we are, as I said, as a community, we're saying what we want. We have a community, other communities, the Jewish community, Christian community, they have their own faith-based schools. And we're not asking anything different. The parents are saying, we want a school similar to those everybody else is getting. The council decided not to give us that building. They've actually sold it to somebody else since then, We made a big demonstration also at the council. And I think if you go back in the archives, you'll see with all placards and the whole community signing up. But the council will not budge, and they refuse to give us.
Is this part of your concern that your case isn't simply a one-off, that there's perhaps at least 2 cases and maybe a broader pattern here?
In January 2011, when we signed an agreement to use the building with the landlord, we had absolutely no sort of indication that there was this level of hostility. In fact, we assumed everything would be above board and professional, and you give everyone the benefit of the doubt. We didn't go in with any assumptions. We began an application process, which was a parallel application process. Because of the nature of the way the school was set up as a charity, we were raising money. We looked at the timescale. We felt that starting in January, all the necessary paperwork could be completed way before the proposed opening time in September 2011. We had no indication that anything would take more than 9 months to complete. So we began a registration with the DFE, which is to register as an independent faith school, and we met with planning officers from Newham. There was an informal meeting in January. Officer came to the site, and we gave them an overview of our intentions to open the school, to convert the site, which was currently being used as a community centre with multiple uses. Prior to that, it was a factory. We gave them the plan that it was going to be turned into a single-use primary school with nursery. And at that time, they said, we look forward to your planning application.
What was the date?
This was in January. So we then continued. We obviously, because of the technical nature of the project, we appointed an architect. Architect prepared a pre-application document, which we submitted to the council. We then were given an appointment to meet with the planning officer. I think this was in April. The architect got tipped off that there was a problem on the phone conversation he had with the planning officer during which he was arranging the appointment time. And the planning officer said that it's very unlikely that the Islamic school will be given a go-ahead. The architect relayed the contents of that conversation to me, and that was the first indication we had that there was some bias, and that we thought it was very unprofessional for a planner to presume an outcome for a meeting during the arrangement of the appointment. So we attended that appointment. There was a very, very difficult meeting in the sense that there was very clearly an agenda, which was, we don't want this Islamic school and we will use every excuse in the book. The biggest excuse being inclusivity. We left the meeting very disappointed. We asked them to include our comments from the meeting in their report, but they failed to do so. The report that we received afterwards basically ended on the theme that an Islamic school is inconsistent with the council's policies, and that this should not go to planning and it would be unsupported by the council. So
let me just get this straight, because the feeling that you got at that meeting was that the issue was inclusivity,
yes.
But the actual grounds have been more technical grounds about the safety of the building.
Yeah, I think...
So you think that there's...
The safety of the building never came up. Yes, the appropriateness of the location was a technical argument. I have no idea where the safety of the building has come up. This is a building which has been declared safe by Ofsted. They came to inspect the building in August as part of their registration process. They have a legal duty to make sure we, as a school, are operating a school within the law.
And Ofsted had no problem?
Ofsted had no problem. The DFE acknowledged in their letter to us that the standards were likely to be met. And this is the standards for opening a school. What happened afterwards, in September itself, the local council called the fire brigade. Now, it's not normal practice for the fire brigade to make unannounced visits unless someone has made a complaint of health and safety. The fire brigade came, They carried out an inspection. They found no serious problems. They made some minor recommendations to improve our safety. This included things like external emergency lighting, which was all done. The fire brigade came back a week later to confirm all of this was done. And so the fire brigade was happy, the building was safe. This was before it opened to children. Fire brigade was happy, the building was safe. Ofsted was happy, the building was safe. The DFE are happy to register us as a school, but the council persist that the building is dangerous to children.
Okay, so the situation now is, just let me give the viewers the announcement that the Communities and Local Government Department have made on this. They say the Planning Inspectorate is to determine the enforcement appeal for Alif Academy, and a date for a public inquiry is currently being arranged. The Planning Inspectorate will consider any representations on the appeal, and interested parties can attend and participate in the inquiry at the discretion of the Planning Inspector. Well, the announcement of a public inquiry, where did that... That didn't happen in your case, presumably?
Yeah, well, ours was a straight rejection.
So you were simply rejected and then went to Ilford?
We just, because what we were at the stage of trying to get the property which was in the market, which was owned by the council, to be given to us, in whatever terms that they would like, so that we can be able to, complete what the community requires for its purpose, which was opening up a school. They just refused. So we then, we felt that as a community, as a local council, as somebody who should be supporting us in terms of, these are your voters, who live in your community, and they say they have a demand, they're asking for a parental choice, which, it's a slogan that in education, and a lot of time they say that, but when it came to it, they refused.
Yeah. Well, the announcement of the public inquiry, though, that must be a bit of a bolt from the blue. It took us a number of years to get an inquiry into the Iraq War, and hey, you've got one in a matter of weeks.
And we weren't expecting it. We were actually really happy just for the fact that there was a public hearing scheduled. When the enforcement notice was served on the school, when it opened, it wasn't for lack of trying to put a planning application in. Newham just did not want our planning application. They then went to the route of serving an enforcement notice. We appealed it straight away. We obviously submitted our planning application as part of the appeal. The Planning Inspectorate obviously looked at the nature of our complaint, and they decided not to give Newham an opportunity to consider the planning application, and decided to have a public hearing instead. We requested a public hearing. So it was a surprise that after the deadline had passed for submission of all the documents, literally a couple of days later, the hearing was cancelled. We were notified in writing, and that had been escalated to an inquiry. I can only assume that, the two reasons given on the letter was that there were the technical case, which we feel may be slightly over-exaggerated, but more significant local public interest. And we feel that it's probably to do with the fact that the London Borough of Newham have said things in the public domain which are not true. And it's a matter of record.
Do you think this is going to now turn into a long process? Do you think perhaps it's a delaying process even?
For us, if it's a long process or a delaying process, we see it as a much more transparent process. We feel that the public inquiry will allow us to consider the evidence and our case in far more detail, with far better scrutiny, with cross-examination of the facts. And we feel that, yes, it may make the process longer, but it would ultimately produce a just outcome. And obviously, in the meantime, the school remains operational.
Let me ask you: do you think this is do you think it's a Newham problem, or do you think it's a general problem? Are you aware of other places? Obviously, you've relocated somewhere where it's worked. But are you aware of other places in the country that have a similar problem to Newham, or is it especially a problem here?
John, I think the problem that the Muslim community is facing is more wider than what we see, in Newham. And in other boroughs as well. in terms of, I think, let's not hide behind. I think the Muslims and Muslim community at the moment is going through a lot of pain. We have to work extra hard in everything that we do. If you put an application for a mosque, and you have to, probably somersault to try and get one. If you put for a school and all that, I don't know. We feel that as a community we have to justify it probably 5-10 times more than everybody else to try and get what we want. That is the feeling we get. And it is difficult. There's many other things that we're going through. I'm not trying to bring that in here. I'm trying to relevant this for the specific issue that we're going to talk about today is Alif Academy. That it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense in the sense that we are in Borough. I mean, similar to where I'm in Redbridge, even in Newham. There is a population growth in terms of number of children. There is a huge demand on the schools for space for children. In fact, you look, most of the schools around and extensions are being built, because probably there is no room for a new school. And here is a school, brand new, and it probably take another 100 children off from your list. And you will have thought, people will say, come on, let's support it, because they are relieving the situation we're in. Plus, there is a community that wants, there is a demand, there is a choice that the people want. In a diverse community that we are in, okay, another school, faith-based school, and there's many others there. We say, go ahead. But, it seems like there is something going on here, and a lot of information what they had just said here, is probably going to come out in the public inquiry.
Do you think this is a failing of the way in which the kind of parental choice argument, which you've referred to, has been set up? Because I mean, there are many people who have reservations about it in any case, but if it's going to be operated in a biased and untransparent way, if there are going to be some people who are welcomed as people who can set up schools, and perhaps either on the basis of religion or, as many people feel, also on the basis of the poverty of the parents that are trying to do this. It's not the same if you're a middle class group of parents. Do you think there's something wrong with this system?
I don't think there's anything wrong with the system of parental choice. I think there's the incompatibility comes from the national guidelines and national decisions taken and how it affects local planning and local issues. What we have here is an example of parental choice just being given lip service at the local level, and there is a bias taking place. If this school was located anywhere else and may have belonged to another denominational group, I don't think it will be in the same situation like we're in at the moment. It will be a scandal anywhere else where you have a borough which has, as of 1st of September 2011, had nearly 400 children waiting for primary school places. Most authorities would welcome additional capacity. But we have an authority here that does not want a school which will bring a professional dimension to Islamic education. I mean, the Alif Academy was set up with some unique objectives. It was set up to present a new contextual approach to education, which combined the best of the national curriculum with a much more contextually based Islamic education. Something which would challenge the madrasa models which are prevalent in Newham. And we thought Newham would welcome that. We thought Newham would welcome the fact that we had children here being taught by qualified teachers who themselves been born and grew up in East London, Newham, like myself. I could never, for one moment, put my head around why there is so much hostility.
So do you think it's just that basically the Newham Council can't even distinguish between different projects within the Muslim community?
No, it's all with the same brush. As far as they're concerned, I think as soon as you're identified as a Muslim or an Islamic organisation, you're suddenly you're put into a certain group. There's a certain stereotype. You're profiled. I was profiled as belonging to an extremist Islamic group, and that message went all the way to DFE. And that just shows the stereotyping, and it is scandalous. It is absolutely outrageous that a local authority can behave like that. And I welcome the fact that there's an inquiry, because some people need to be held to account. And
that's your thing. You welcome the public inquiries?
Yeah. It's really sad when you see that you have a community of people that can be treated the way you treat them. You know, I don't know how. I mean, I don't know how to express the words that, you know, dictatorialship. I mean, what more can you say? It's like somebody out there, you know, is going to say, no, these guys are not going to get it, you know, just because of what their faith is. It doesn't make sense. You know, it's a community that has lived there, you know, for centuries, if not, you know, for years. You know, who contribute, who are politically involved, and yet, you know, when you get this tarnished and objections and barriers put up, you start thinking, you know, what do we do? What do we do now in situations like where we have to fight these battles all the time for small things? Which don't make sense anymore, you know. So I don't know.
Okay. Well, we're going to have to leave it there. My thanks to both Haseeb and Daud for giving us that insight into the events in Newham, and I'm sure we'll be following the outcome of the public inquiry on politics and media in the future. But that brings us to the end of the first part of the programme. Please do rejoin us in a few minutes.